Welcome to our journey through time, where we delve into one of the most pivotal and heavily debated eras in Islamic history. Today, we invite you to explore the complex narratives surrounding the lives of two central figures who forever altered the political landscape of the early Muslim world. Grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let us unravel the intricate web of power, conflict, and monumental shifts that transitioned the Islamic State from a system of consultation to a hereditary dynasty. If you find yourself captivated by the hidden layers of history, stick with us to the very end of this fascinating story. Our narrative begins with the first caliph of the Umayyad dynasty, a man whose lineage and political acumen left an indelible mark on history. Born into the prominent and wealthy Umayyad family of Mecca about 15 years before the Hijra, he was the son of a powerful Qurayshi leader who initially stood as a fierce opponent to the spread of the new faith. However, as the political tides shifted, the family embraced Islam, and this future leader eventually became one of the scribes of the revelation. Following the passing of the Prophet, he steadily climbed the ranks of power. Serving under the early caliphs, he was appointed as a military commander and later as the governor of the Levant. Through strategic governance and deep familial ties with the third caliph, who notoriously favored his relatives, he consolidated absolute authority over the entire Levantine region. The assassination of the third caliph by revolutionaries ignited a profound crisis. When the fourth caliph assumed leadership, prioritizing the stabilization of the fragile state over immediate vengeance, the governor of the Levant vehemently rejected his authority. Demanding swift and uncompromising retaliation for his fallen kinsman, he led his formidable Syrian army into a massive, bloody confrontation known as the Battle of Siffin. Thousands perished in the ensuing civil war, which ultimately ended in an arbitration that significantly tilted the balance of power in his favor. The complexities of his reign also extend to deeply polarized historical accounts regarding his relationship with the Prophet's widow. While some traditions firmly maintain that she lived out her days and passed away naturally, other historical texts present a much darker narrative. These controversial accounts suggest that when she opposed his unprecedented decision to secure the succession for his own son, he grew entirely intolerant of her defiance. According to these specific sources, he ordered a concealed pit to be dug in her path, leading to a fatal fall. Regardless of which historical lens one looks through, it is undeniable that his push for a hereditary succession was a turning point that faced fierce resistance. Eventually, a pivotal peace treaty was forged to end the widespread bloodshed that had plagued the Muslim community through years of civil strife. The grandson of the Prophet agreed to step down from leadership, uniting the fractured populace under one ruler, on the explicit condition that the caliphate would return to a consultative system upon the ruler's death. Yet, in a move that shattered this agreement and permanently transformed Islamic governance, the Umayyad founder nominated his son as his definitive successor. This brazen shift from a shura, or consultative council, to an absolute monarchy sparked waves of outrage among prominent figures who viewed the heir as entirely unfit, citing widespread historical reports of his immorality, tyranny, and disregard for religious tenets. When the founder passed away and his son ascended the throne, the simmering opposition erupted into full-scale rebellion. The people of Medina, outraged by the new caliph's notorious behavior, broke their oaths of allegiance and expelled his appointed governor. In a ruthless display of power, the caliph dispatched a massive army with a chilling mandate to crush the rebellion and force the city into submission. What followed was a devastating 3-day siege known as the Incident of Al-Hara. Historical records describe an unimaginable tragedy where the Prophet's city was subjected to merciless pillaging. Hundreds of the Prophet's companions and those who had memorized the holy texts were slaughtered. The profound brutality of the assault saw widespread atrocities against the women of the city, leaving deep generational scars, while the Prophet's own mosque was desecrated by the occupying forces. The commander of this army justified the horrific slaughter by claiming absolute obedience to the ruler, believing the eradication of dissidents was a righteous cleansing of the state.
Amidst this overwhelming tyranny, the Prophet's other grandson emerged as the beacon of resistance. Refusing to validate a corrupt ruler, he departed from Medina to Mecca, where he received an outpouring of letters from the people of Kufa in Iraq. They desperately urged him to come to them, promising unwavering support if he would lead them in restoring justice and proper governance. Empowered by these thousands of pledges, he set out towards Iraq with a small, intimate caravan comprising his family, loyal companions, and children. However, the promised support evaporated under the crushing weight of the caliph's intimidation. The people of Kufa abandoned their pledges, leaving the small caravan to face a massive, well-equipped army of thousands dispatched by the authorities. Intercepted in the desolate plains of Karbala, the caravan was subjected to a cruel siege. The opposing forces cut off their access to water, leaving the women and children to suffer from agonizing thirst under the scorching sun. Despite being given an ultimatum to pledge allegiance or face annihilation, the Prophet's grandson steadfastly chose honor over submission. What unfolded next was a tragically unequal battle. A tiny force of just a few dozen horsemen and infantrymen stood valiantly against an army of thousands. A relentless barrage of arrows rained down upon them, yet they fought with unparalleled courage. One by one, brothers, nephews, and loyal friends fell, until the leader stood completely alone. Struck by a fatal arrow and overwhelmed by ruthless blows, he was martyred, his head severed, and his body subjected to unimaginable desecration. The women and children of the household were taken as captives, enduring humiliation as they were marched across the desert to the heart of the Umayyad Empire. Upon receiving the news of the massacre, the caliph is recorded by several historians to have openly mocked the divine revelation, revealing a chilling belief that the entire struggle had simply been a worldly game for absolute power. The echoes of the tragedy at Karbala resonated far beyond the blood-stained sands of the battlefield. It forged an enduring legacy, permanently shaping the ideological and psychological landscape of the Muslim world. The profound sacrifice became an eternal symbol of defiance against oppression and tyranny, cementing a historical and cultural foundation that continues to inspire millions to this day. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into a profoundly complex chapter of history. Exploring these narratives allows us to better understand the powerful forces that shape the world we live in today. If you found this historical journey engaging and insightful, please consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like on this video. We would love to hear your thoughts and perspectives on these monumental events, so don't hesitate to share them in the comments below. See you in our next exploration of history's greatest stories.